Hi, my name is Kevin Box, and thanks for taking the time to check out our maintenance and repair video here. Lost wax casting and sculpture is a very simple 35-step, 12-week process on a good day, and sometimes we may make mistakes in the studio or along the way of process. We're not perfect, but more often than not, maybe a piece gets knocked over or damaged, or a tree limb falls on something. So we often get a lot of questions as, you know, how do I fix there's a tiny little ding, or how do I clean my sculpture is also a really important one. So I just want to go over our best practices 2021 in the studio, how we handle our artwork, and give you a little tutorial. So I've got a set of tools here. My favorite of all is just a dry bristle brush, and I've put some tape around the metal so that just in case I hit the artwork with it, it doesn't scratch it. And number one rule of taking care of your sculpture to enjoy it and keep it clean is dusting, right? A lot of people have feather dusters, but I like the stiff bristle brush like this because it really gets in there and you can sort of get aggressive with it and really clean the artwork. Okay, this works on indoor, outdoor artwork. If it's outdoors, you may have more cobwebs or you know, little tree leaves and stuff like that. So that's number one, all right? Just a simple bristle brush. Number two is your paper towel, right? I like paper towels and just plain old H2O. Water, I just like to get it soaked and then wring it out and then flip it out. Water is, you know, very non-corrosive, it's non-invasive, and if you've got something that really is sticking a little bit more, outdoors like bird droppings or sap or something, a lot of times water literally is the only thing you need to do. And you're not going to worry about, like, is this chemical going to cause the bronze to change colors or whatever. We use bronze, aluminum, and stainless steel in our process, and a lot of times it's hard to tell like which is which, and that's kind of my goal, right? I want you to think of paper, and that's the subject matter that we're describing. So it kind of doesn't matter. All of these techniques are going to work for whichever you have, indoors or out. But water is just like the nicest thing. If they're outdoors, especially in urban environments with a lot of pollution and air pollution, or by the coast where there's salt water, rinsing your artwork, your outdoor pieces with fresh water regularly, or just wiping them down is, I can't tell you how important that is. It gets the salt buildup and the pollution in the air and the little particulates off of the artwork. Sometimes we've had pieces that come in and, you know, contamination is sitting on the surface and it rusts because it's dirt or whatever, and it looks like the piece is rusting, and we'll literally get some water or a paper towel and that takes care of it. If you've got something a little bit more aggressive, these are the next best thing in your arsenal of cleaning, which is green Scotch Brite. These are in most people's kitchen sinks, and a little bit more rare, but at the hardware store you can get a red Scotch Brite. This is a little bit more like a mild sandpaper, but just a little bit of Scotch Brite, especially for like a bird dropping or something, you can really scrub it. The surfaces and the paints that we use are really hard and durable. They can withstand this. The worst thing that you might see is that you literally rub off the wax or the patina that we use to sort of enhance the white to look more like paper. So we use a raw sienna wax, I'll get to that later, but sometimes if you're really scrabbing on something, the piece will get whiter in that area, and that's okay. We have a remedy for that too. The red Scotch Brite is something that I pretty much use for repairs or major spots that I'm getting at. But for a repair, let's say, you know, this got knocked over, the grandkids or kids are playing ball in the house. We all know that that's not supposed to happen, but life happens, right? It gets knocked over and there's a ding right there on the surface of the piece. Either Scotch Brite or a light fine sandpaper. This is like a 220, 150 grit sandpaper, depending on what I need to do. But what I'm gonna do is go right to that wound basically, and I'm gonna Scotch Brite it to get it back to white, get back to the metal. If you can actually see the metal showing through the artwork, then you want to see that that metal gets a little bit shinier. You're actually cleaning any oxidization or dirt that might be actually on the piece, okay? And the next step for that, and this is something that you may already have, or you may request from a gallery or from the studio. It looks like whiteout, but it's an Orbit paint touch-up that we order specifically to match the whites that we use in our artwork. And it looks like a whiteout bottle, so we all know how to do that. And you can open it up, and a lot of times it's very full, especially if you've shaken it up as per the directions. So a lot of times I like to wipe the stem of the applicator or the little brush off so that you don't end up with a big old drip, you know, coming down. But this white paint is what we're going to use to actually fix the blemish on the piece. Now, again, before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit more about prep. You really want to make sure that the area is clean, okay? And that if it needed a little bit of sandpaper, but we're actually scuffing the surface a little bit, and be prepared to get your hands a little bit dirty, or have a Q-tip maybe, or a paper towel nearby. Because the key to this, if you just put the white on the piece, you know, and leave it, there's going to be like this dollop of white paint, and it's going to stand out, like, as I call it, we're not trying to pick a scab here and make the problem worse, right? So the real trick to this is feathering, right, or blending. I'm going to apply the paint, and you'll see it's whiter than what's around it, right? It's kind of obvious, but what I'm going to do is just take my finger and I'm going to blend it around, and boom, it disappears, okay? I got a little paint on my fingers. You're going to get dirty, all right? But come back and, you know, blow on it a little bit, and come back and keep doing that a little bit until you feel like it's covered. And you might want to just let it dry for a few minutes and then come back maybe 15 minutes later and do one more application so that you get a couple layers on it. But that's the key. It's really easy to do. I mean, it really is. Anybody can do this that has ever used whiteout, you know, on your homework. We're going to let that dry for a second, and at the end, we're going to come back with the raw sienna wax. In this case, where I touched it up, I can't even see it. It doesn't even show up. But sometimes, especially on an edge, where maybe that raw sienna is predominant and it's really bringing out the texture, you're going to sort of see that white spot, and we want to make that disappear. And this is the most important trick here. In our touch-up kits that we send out from the studio, we just have a little chunk of this wax, and usually we'll include a brush with the tape already on it. We'll just have a little bit of it in a plastic bag, and you just kind of get that out and put a little bit on the brush. And what I like to do is actually have a paper towel and wipe it off. Like, actually, you can see this is what we're doing here. We're adding this sort of dirty color to it. We're dirtying the piece to give it that parchment look. And so get familiar with that. You don't want to have too much on the brush. And then you're just going to come back and what we call dry brush. You're just going to hit the tops of that area where the fix was. And then I was always taught in painting, never do it in just one place. You always want to add a little color to create harmony. So let's say the wax is just a little bit different color than the wax that was applied to your piece. I mean, it's a recipe that we use, but it's all handmade, right? So in order to make sure that it's not just isolated in one area and we don't have this like scab getting worse, we're just going to move that around and enhance the piece a little bit more, all right? Some people like more or less of the wax. I've had clients literally scrub all the wax off a piece because they thought it looked better all white. You know, more power to you, it's your piece. But it's what makes it look like paper to me. And that's the final little trick there for a standard repair. Now, I'm going to go into another aspect, which is if we've had sort of like a major damage or ding, and you really need to clean it. Sometimes lacquer thinner is necessary. Sometimes somebody's tried to do a repair and it doesn't look good. Lacquer thinner's your friend. It will take down this white, so don't worry. Worst case scenario, you can just remove, you know, the touch-up paint. So that's a good way of going back and sort of cleaning that off. If it doesn't look right, that's a way of starting over. Most of the artworks are finished in a polyurethane, an enamel, or a powder coat, and lacquer thinner will not eat away that surface. It will just eat the touch-up paint or the wax. It'll clean the artwork really well too to prepare it for painting or touch-up. And then another product that we use, especially like on scissors or stainless steel. In this case, we've got the raw bronze in the back. There are examples of our work where the bronze has a patina on it, like this, and this is lacquered. We use a special lacquer called Nikolas 8321, and this can be ordered through my studio. It's really, we have to buy large amounts of it, but it's an incredibly durable outdoor lacquer, and sometimes that has to be reapplied to a piece in a repair situation. And so what we always recommend if you're going to be using lacquer is to go ahead and clean off the lacquer that was already on the piece and do the whole area. So if you're doing a scissor blade, you don't want to just like finish and clean one little area. You need to do the whole blade. If I'm going to redo this, I would take lacquer thinner and literally just clean the whole thing, okay, so that you don't end up with like one area that looks fresher or redone as opposed to other. So we're going to create harmony and we're going to restore the piece properly by doing the entire area or the section. So lacquer thinner will remove the old lacquer and just give you back to that sort of beginning place, and then we'll just coat it, shake this up a little bit, and we'll hit it a couple times with the lacquer. 1 or 2 smooth coats that blend is all it needs. You don't have to go back and do it again. Oftentimes second coats will create an orange peel, which is undesirable, and it's just there as a layer of protection. So even with stainless steel, we'll sometimes go back and need to do a little repair on that, and we'll use the Scotch Brite especially, but first we'll remove the lacquer because stainless steel is not stain free. They don't make stain free steel. I haven't seen it yet. You have to move to a whole nother alloy. So we'll remove the lacquer, we'll Scotch Brite it, clean the metal up really good, and then in the case of scissors, let's say, we'll have to mask it. So I don't want to put lacquer over everything. So I'll take some blue painter's tape and I'll mask around the scissor blade so that the white is protected. We'll do all the work we're doing from removing the lacquer to the Scotch Briting, and then we'll come back and just hit it with a nice new coat and bam, brand new. The beauty of museum quality metals, and that's what we use, bronze, aluminum, and stainless steel, is that in a worst case scenario, the metal is intact and has integrity so that it can be repaired. Whether it's in our studio, which can be costly with shipping and getting it to and from, but we're always happy to do it. But these are little techniques and things that you can do in your own home or studio or gallery or community that can give you the empowering ability to freshen up your work and make it look like new. So thanks for the time. Thanks for joining me today. Hope that helped.